Howdy, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for the 1 o'clock session. This is going to be another superb, interesting, and well-done session. We've heard so much about the aspects of the hobby. One of the great dimensions of our hobby is something that gets us outdoors, gets us using our radio, keeps us social, and I think it's a lovely insertion point for the public at large, because we've got folks out in parks with their gear, talking up a storm, obviously having fun, and so there's the opportunity for serendipity, for discussions with the public about what you're doing, and those always work well for amateur radio operators. The two folks that are going to talk to us today are Leon Bruner and Mike Magnotti. These are impossibly talented fellows that have gone from a standing start to being national ranked at Parks on the Air. From my view, it takes three things to be good at Parks on the Air. One is you got to have some portable gear. You have to have procedures that allow you to be successful. And three, you have to have a go get it done attitude. These two guys have those three qualities in abundance. So I'm pleased to relinquish the mic to our presenters.
All right, well, I hope I live up to the advanced billing. Thank you, Don, very much. It's going to be hard to live up to that. If I had to walk through the door now, I don't think my head would fit. So anyway, well, good afternoon. I'm Leon Bruner, NT8B, and this is my colleague, KD4 Mike Magnotti. And the presentation I'm going to give this afternoon is going to, we're going to share our adventures in Parks on the Air with you this afternoon. So this afternoon, I'm going to take you a walk through our experience with Parks on the Air. And what I hope is that this will stimulate some interest among you to go out and do the same thing, because it's really quite straightforward, and it's an awful lot of fun to do. We have in the last year we've done this. We've enjoyed what we've done tremendously, and what it does is it gets us out in the outdoors. This is a typical scene that we run into. This is just outside of Washington, D.C. on the way to Roosevelt Island. That was whenever we walked out to a park early one day. We see things like Great Falls National Park. This is a photograph of us setting up at Wolf Trap. And one point to make here is that all of these parks, or if you live in the D.C. area, these are all within easy driving distance from my home. Most of these are no more than 20 minutes to a half an hour drive away. So there's real opportunity around the area here. But the other thing is that you don't have to be tied down to one location. This is a photograph of a park I activated on a trip to Texas. We went down to see my son, who was working down in the very southernmost part of Texas, and I put my KX3 and a battery in my backpack and was able to activate the park in Texas. It's a lot of fun. And then the other thing that you get to do is you make crazy numbers of contacts. This is probably the closest I'll ever get to being on a de-expedition and working a pileup. It gets that good when we're out in a park in the afternoon. And this just gives you a little short snippet of what we see and hear when we're out on one of these activations.
Whiskey Delta 4 Alpha, you're 5858 into Western North Carolina. Over.
USL, Whiskey Delta 4 Alpha, I copy 58 into North Carolina, and you are 59 into Park Kilo 0692. Enjoy your weekend, 73.
Thanks so much, have fun.
This is Kilo Delta 4, Mike QRZ.
Just caught the tail end of it there. There was probably a dozen people calling Mike just at the end of that contact. So that's the way these typically go. Some of the contacts are really short, and other times we get into contacts that are absolutely hilarious, including guys who are up early in the morning who haven't quite worn off the libations of the night before, and those are really quite interesting. The other thing is that we make contacts all over the place. So this is a map, and I'll show you how we generate these maps in a minute. But on this particular activation, we worked as far west as Alaska, and then we worked several stations in Europe, and then a bunch of stations all in the middle, all in one day. So if you get it set up right, it works really well, and you can make a lot of contacts. In fact, on this particular map, we were out one day at Sky Meadow State Park. We got there about 1 in the afternoon, and we packed up at 5, just when it started to rain and our batteries pooped out. But by the time we were done, we had worked 250 contacts in the afternoon. So it was a really good day and a lot of fun. This is a little bit more of a close-up just to give you a sense for the scatter of the contacts in the states that we made. So anyway, how do you get into this Parks on the Air thing? What's it all about? Well, Parks on the Air is an organization. It's a not-for-profit organization that is been put together by a group of people who just love going out in parks, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job of putting this program together. This is their website, and what they're set up to do is to help you make run portable operations from state and national parks. Local parks and city parks and so forth, there's just too many of them, so they're not on the list. So any state park or national park qualifies for the program. The thing that's nice about POTA is that there's hardly any rules. There's a code of conduct, which basically says, please be nice whenever you're out in a park. But otherwise, the list of rules and regulations is pretty short. And you can find this website very easily. It's www.parksontheair.com, and it's there for you to use. And I highly recommend it if you're interested in this. Okay, so how does this Parks on the Air business work? Well, there are two types of operators in Parks on the Air. There's the activators. The activators are the guys and gals who go out into the parks. And then there are the hunters or chasers, usually folks working from home. Hunters are operators who are typically trying to collect parks. And there are all kinds of different prizes for collecting parks, worked all the parks in the state, et cetera, et cetera. You can just imagine what they are. And you can find where those awards are on the Parks on the Air website. So hunters, 10 hunters and chasers are looking for folks who are out in the parks. And then the other thing that can happen is that there's oftentimes on a day multiple activators out at the same time. And it turns out that activators like to work activators in situations that are known as park-to-park contacts. So we like to collect park-to-parks because we get awards for doing that as well. So if you want to get started in POTA, you don't have to leave your house, just become a hunter, and it's really easy to do. And the way you do it is go to the Parks on the Air website, and what you can see here is, let's see, do I have a pointer? I don't have a pointer. I'll use this pointer here for the audience. So if you go into the Parks on the Air website, you can find a place where there's activations, and you'll come up to this page right here, and it shows you all the stations who have either spotted themselves or been spotted by usually other hunters. And it makes it pretty easy to tune up and down the band and find the stations. Stations typically operate either CW or sideband, and there's some digital operations from the parks. And depending on what your radio setup is, there's some filters on the top. So you can filter if you're interested in working stations on 40 meters on sideband, you can set the filters for those, and you can find the stations and then tune up and down the band and find them. And that's it. That's all you need to do. You don't need to register. You don't need to do anything if you don't want to. But if you're interested in collecting some awards as a hunter, it's no cost. All you need to do is to go to the POTA website and register your call there. And then what happens is the activators, typically when they go out to parks, are very interested in submitting their logs. And when their log is submitted with your call sign in it, you go into the database and you just automatically begin to collect the award. So as a hunter, you don't need to do anything. You don't have to pay anything. Just register on the website and then start contacting stations, activator stations. And what happens is again, on another page on the Parks on the Air website, as you begin to work stations, your statistics will begin to appear on a page like this. And you can see that parks you've activated and parks that you've hunted are collected on this website. Like I said, automatically it's up there. And so you can begin to do it that way. And then after you've worked enough parks, you can earn awards. So this is an award. It's called the Arizona Agave Award. They have some very interesting names for these awards. This one says that I contacted 100 unique parks. And again, I didn't have to do anything to do this other than make the contacts and have the activators log my station. So that's it for hunting. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and a lot of fun. You get to learn how to break up pileups while you're at it. Mike, do you want to add anything to what I've said so far? Okay. All right, very good. So, all right, let's move on to activating parks here. So activating is going out to a park. And as I said earlier, that's either state parks or national parks. So where do you find these parks? Well, again, back to the Parks on the Air website. And what I've shown here are two clips. One is of the Washington, D.C. area. And I just picked the United Kingdom as another example. And you'll notice that on this map, there are a large number of yellow dots. Each one of those yellow dots represents an activatable park. So you can see in our area, for example, there are tons of parks that are available for us to activate. But if you're traveling, again, just another example, the UK, you can see there's parks all over the UK. You can see a little snippet of the Netherlands there. So a lot of parks in Europe and other places around the world. And you can take your rig and activate from those. And then you can zero in on a park. And so if you click on one of those little yellow dots, so I zoomed in on the DC area, and this is a map of showing Roosevelt Island. And if you click on that little yellow dot, it opens up this little window that gives the park number, in this case, K0791. And then if you click on that little page, then it opens up another window that takes you to the park itself. And it shows you who the stations, how many stations have activated, who's activated it the most, when the activators have gone, who's got the top scores on the park. So all kinds of statistics. It's kind of like baseball. You can get a statistic for everything. And I know you can't see it there, but the top two, or the number 2 and number 3 activators are NT8B and KD4 Mike. We got out there. We had a really good day out on Roosevelt Island and made a lot of contacts. So it's kind of fun to get in the on the leaderboard when you do these parks. I like to check it before I go, so I can see how many I need to get in order to break a record. Okay, and then like I said, for the same, it's the same for the activators. This group loves its awards. And I've shown just one. This is called, this one is called the Rhino Activator Radar Award, Rapid Deployment of Amateur Radio. And if in this case, this particular award, the Rhino Award is for activating 3 parks within a 24-hour period. And I think we've done 5 as the most, and you can, the top award for the radar is like 10 parks. So if you could do 10 parks in 24 hours, that takes you to the top of the list. I mentioned Park to Parks a few minutes ago. This is just another award for working parks, and we all like working each other. You know, it's good camaraderie because we all say, you know, have a great day. Thanks for the activation. Enjoy it. I hope you're having fun, et cetera, et cetera. That's the other really nice thing about this, is that it's very collegial to do Parks on the Air. It's not terribly competitive. And you get to know folks after a while, because many of the folks who are activators are regulars. There are some who do like way more than we do, but you get used to hearing calls and hearing people out there, and it's really friendly and a lot of fun. Okay, so what about equipment and setup? So what I like to do, I think Mike and I are fairly aligned on this. We like to keep it really simple. So my sort of guiding principle on all this has been, I want to be able, unless I'm going on a hike, if we drive into a park, I want to be able to get wherever I'm going in one trip. So I try to minimize the gear to the biggest extent that I can. And so this is a typical setup. We have, and Mike has got, can show them here on the table. This is, we keep our gear in one backpack. And then we typically carry a battery, and then depending on the facilities that are available, and I'll talk more about that in a second, we might carry a chair or a mast. But the basic idea is we want to be able to get from the car to wherever it is we're going in just one trip. So, and this is what's in the bag. So there's typically, and you really need 3 things to make an activation work. So you need a radio and its battery. So you need some power. You need something to log with, and you need an antenna. So radio, battery, antenna, and some way to log, and that's it. Now we show here some digital gear. Some people like to do FT8 in parks, and we take our digital stuff along with us. I've never done a digital activation, but no, Mike hasn't either, but they're out there as well. And you can bring that along without adding too much weight to your gear. So Radios. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of radios that folks are using for this. Really, anything goes. Anything that you can get to a picnic table in a park is just fine. Sometimes people like to use the larger radios, like I'm just showing an example of ICOM 7300 or a DX10. So people will take their portable desktop, I'll call them desktop radios, along with the radio that we like to use is the FT891. This is a nice full power radio that works very well on sideband and CW. And for us, it's worked extremely well. Others like the Yaesu 817, there's a lot of folks out there with the little Elecraft radios, KX3, KX2, the Chinese radios, Aigu, and the Discovery radios are often, you hear about them. And then if you want to go really, really, really small, these are examples of the last two are examples of little CW radios that people take out. They'll put out from 1 to 5 watts. The QCX Mini is a really nice little CW radio. You can carry it easily in a backpack with a little small battery and a CW key, and you're off and running. It works extremely well. And this is a typical setup. This is our 891 setup. We do carry an antenna tuner, but we can get away without it. But we tune up our antenna. We use an end-fed half wave that I'll talk about in just a minute. And then over on the left, you can see the laptop. We find it's very nice to use a computer for logging. We don't connect the radios together, again, to keep it simple. We just type in the call signs as we go. But and then there's a battery. I don't show the battery on the picture here, but the antenna. But again, that's it. That's all you need. This is the setup that I took to Texas. So I have a little KX2, a little small tablet-style computer. You can see my antenna, feed line, and a bag for wires and connectors. And again, I put that all in my backpack, over the shoulder, right straight through the TSA without any problems. I said to him, "Hey, I got a radio and a battery. You want to see it?" He said, "No, I'll put it through." And I got through 2 TSA checks without any questions. So I was able to travel with the radio and the battery without any problems. Okay, so antennas. I already mentioned that the antenna that we like to use works really well for us is the end-fed half-wave antenna. Our end-fed half waves are Homebrew. The way they work is they have a 49-to-1 transformer on one end of the antenna that connects to the feed line. The feed line, of course, then goes to the radio. And then we typically, and I'll show you how we do it in just a second, toss a line up in a tree, or we bring a mast with us, and we put the far end up in a tree. All of our end-fed half waves are Homebrew end-fed. So for about less than $20, I can build one of these antennas. So we ordered the toroids, we wrapped the wires, and we 3D printed the mounts there. And then we wind the wire on the winder, and it just makes for a very nice, compact little antenna. In fact, here's a picture of another style that we use. So these are FT14043 toroids wrapped with wire, the transformer wire to make a 49-to-1 transformer. And then the feed line that is just wrapped around the winder there. And again, it makes it very easy for deployment. The wire itself is cut for a half wave on 40 meters. So, and the nice thing about this antenna is that it works on multiple bands. So it works on 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters without any problems. Don't need the tuner, except maybe for 10 meters whenever it needs to be touched up there a little bit. But otherwise, it's a multi-band antenna that really works quite well for us. Okay, so how do we deploy the antenna? Well, we get the far end, the far end of the wire up above the ground, about 30 feet or so. One way of doing it is to use an arborist throw weight, an arborist line. And I got a little demo, tongue-in-cheek, on how we do that. And I skipped over it here. Let's try this again.
Here we are at Clara Barton National Historic Site, where Leon Bruner, famous antenna placement expert, is throwing his first line up in the tree. Of course, as always, first shot, best shot.
So Mike's pulling my leg, of course. It's usually mini shots, but that's how we do it. But once we get it up in a tree, then what we do is we just attach the end of the antenna line with a little carabiner-like clip there. We just pull it up. And then the other end, the feed part of the antenna, we've done it all different kinds of ways. We've hung it from a tree. You might be able to see it hanging next to that tree right there. When I was down in Texas, this was on a really small little piece of ground. And so what I did was there was a fence in the back corner. So I used the arborist line to go over the top of the tree. And then, where's the pointer here? I'm sorry for you folks online, but anyway, there's the feed point. It goes up over the tree. And then what I did was I bought at the local Lowe's one of these, they're portable electric fence posts. You can just stick them in the ground with your foot. So that's what this little white thing is right here. So the antenna line just goes up right over the tree, and I attached it to that electric fence post, and I made a ton of QSOs on 5 watts for this park. So it worked really well. My portable XYL. Oh yes, that's my portable YL sitting behind me. Yes, reading a book. She's very long suffering, my YL. Okay, and then we have other configuration we run. This is where the antenna feed point is mounted really low to the ground, and you can see in this area the trees were pretty short, so we didn't have a tall tree. And Mike just he's got an example of his mast over there. He just bungee corded the mast to the side of the tree and ran the mast up with a wire on it. And again, we made a ton of contacts there. And then this is another configuration that I've used. This has my 49-to-1 balun in a little box right here. And then this is a 10-meter mast. So the wire is nearly vertical, goes right up the top. So this, in effect, this was cut for 20 meters. Half wave of 20 meters is 10. So, it's a 10-meter mast. And so I had an end-fed half wave that was configured in a vertical fashion. And again, I like using these, they're called portable electric fence posts. And they have a little thing that you can step on it with your foot and a spike, and you just push it into the ground. And it makes just a really nice temporary low impact holder for your antennas. And so I stuck that in the ground. I bungee corded the mast to that. And then you can see I just ran some guy lines to keep it from falling over. And so that was it. I'm able to deploy this in about 10 minutes. It's very easy to use. And again, it works really well. So, and these are all homebrew. Like I said, they cost less than 20 bucks. You can make these things. If you'd rather go commercial, there's a broad range of commercial options available. The one in the middle is the Wolf River coil. There's a lot of folks who like to use those. Upper left, par end feds antennas work quite well. A lot of folks speak highly of the Pactena antenna, which is in the lower left. The buddy pole is a really nice system, but it's really expensive. And it works fine. And then Soda Beams also makes very lightweight portable antennas in different configurations that are readily available. Okay, and so that's it for antennas. Again, our philosophy is to try to keep it simple, and that's the reason we like the end-fed half wave so well. With regard to power, the primary power that we use is a portable ammo can. We just I got mine at Harbor Freight for $8, and I put a couple of USB ports on the front of it, a couple switches, and a voltmeter, and then some Anderson power poles to get at the wiring that's inside. So you can see that depicted in the back left of the photo there. And then I also have a couple of BioNO batteries that I carry around. And I have an even smaller one that I haven't shown here that I carried in my backpack on the airlines without any trouble. I have a solar panel, but it turns out I've never used the solar panel in any of the activations we've done. There's only one time that I ran my battery flat, and that was on that day that we did the 250 QSOs. I pushed the button one time and everything went black. And fortunately, Mike had his pack there, and we made a quick switch, and we were off and running again. So we used up a 30 amp hour battery on that day. So I like the BioNO batteries because you can use the rated amp hours is if you buy an 8 amp hour battery, you can get 8 amperes out of them. I tend not to like the sealed lead acid batteries because they're heavy. And if you buy an 8 amp hour SLA battery, you shouldn't run it down any more than about 4 amp hours. Otherwise, it ruins the battery. So I like the BioNOs the best. They have a long life, many recharges and so forth. This is a picture of my Homebrew box. I already described it. You can see the USB ports, and you can see on the left side where I put the Anderson power poles. If I were to make another one of these, I'd make it a lot simpler than this. I got a little carried away. You only really need one USB and an on-off switch, and if you like a voltmeter, I would recommend doing that. You can make it like Mike's, yeah. This is the inside of my box. I use these Wago connectors, which is really nice, makes them flexible. And then one thing I did put in my box that I like is I have an Epic power gate. And the reason I put that in there is that it makes my battery box universally chargeable. I can charge it from the car with 12 volts. If I bring my Bioenno charger, I can charge it like in a hotel room or on the road from a 110 outlet. And then this power gate also allows me to put my solar panel in. It has a solar power regulator in it, so I can use that to charge the batteries as well. A lot of folks take solar panels with them. Like I said, it's not necessary because on a typical day, we don't run our battery down all the way, but many folks do use them. So that's the story on power. Again, just keep it simple. And you're welcome to come up and look at Mike's box after the presentation if you're interested. Okay, the other thing I mentioned you really need to do is logging. And the reason logging is important is because when you're out in a park, you're the operator, and all those activators who take the time of the day to come and contact you really want you to put their logs in. And that's their reward, is you put your log in. So it's really essential when you're out on an activation to log your contacts. And again, you can, a lot of folks use just pen and paper. So I took this photograph from, if you're interested in bloggers who are doing this sort of stuff, this is K4SWL, and he uses, his website is qrper.com, and he does some really nice YouTube videos. And sometimes when he goes out to a park, he just logs with pencil and paper. I don't like pencil and paper because when I get home, I have to sit down and enter all the calls by hand. And I don't do very well with that kind of bureaucracy. So I tend not to use paper and pencil, but instead I'll use a logger that's available called HAMRS, HAMRS. And I'm not sure what HAMR stands for, but it's a really nice piece of software. One thing that's really nice about it, if you use it on a laptop, there's no cost for it. You can download it, it's freeware, made readily available by the author. And he's done a great job putting this software together. And the reason I like it for POTA is that it has a POTA template in it that has all the fields that you need to make a correct log. And it just really works very well for our activations. And this is a page you can see across the top. There's the form that you fill out when you're doing the operations. And then it provides 3 different windows while you're operating. So in this particular window down below, you can see that it keeps a running tally of the contacts that you've made. And then if you want, the other thing that's really nice is that if you have internet access and you can connect I connect wirelessly with my phone, it will go to the POTA website and it will collect the spots. You remember that spot page that I showed you a little bit earlier? The spots come into the software, so you can tune up and down the band looking for parks so that you can get those park-to-park contacts. And again, the really nice thing about this is that with each of these little cards here, this represents one station, one park that's on the air. If you hear him, you can click on this little button right here, and it copies all of his contact information, his frequency, his park, and all that. It fills all the fields. So you're free to work him, and as soon as you do, you just log him and you move on to the next. And so you can keep working down. It changes color whenever you work a station. So again, it's just a really POTA-friendly piece of software. The other thing it does is it makes these nice little maps. So the map that I showed you, it collects all the calls. It goes into a database, and it maps out the calls for you so you can see who you've spoken with. Okay. So why do we like to do this? I hope you've gotten the drift so far that it's really challenging, and we find that it's an awful lot of fun. So when we go out to these parks, we never really know sometimes exactly what we're going to get. Sometimes when we get to a park, It's a nice picnic table under a nice shade tree, and there's another tree just down the road a ways that we can toss our line into, and the setup is really easy and quite comfortable. This is a picture of the Manassas Battlefield Park, which is, again, not too far from here. There's a nice pavilion there, so we were able to sit under the pavilion and put our antenna out on the tree. I showed the antenna a little bit earlier. That was the one where we had the antenna bungeed around the tree. So that was at this park here. So once we got the antenna up, we went into the pavilion and operated from there. It was really comfortable. But sometimes whenever we get to a park, the only thing we can find is a park bench. So this is an example of that. And we have a little portable table that we can just sling over our arms. And again, on the philosophy of one trip to the picnic, one trip to the park bench, that's how we do it. So we set up the little table, put the radio on it. We just operated from the park bench. And then sometimes there's not even a park bench, there's just a parking lot. So we'll set up a table and operate from the table, and there you go. When I operated another park in Texas, I didn't show the pictures because I was worried about the time here. I just operated from the back seat of the rental car. So I put the antenna up and just opened the back seat of the car, put the driver's seat as far forward as I could, and just operated with my KX3 on my knee, and it worked just fine. Okay, some other things to consider when you're activating POTA. If you decide to do it and go out and do an activation, it's a really great idea to schedule your activation. So I'm sure it's hard to see in the room here, but again, on the POTA website, you can go to a page that allows you to schedule your activation. And there's two reasons for doing that. POTA activations don't work without hunters. And this makes it really easy for the hunters to find you. So if you let the hunters know you're going to be out there and they need your park, they'll be ready for you and they'll be looking for you. So that's a big benefit. And the other thing is that if you're a CW operator, if you register beforehand, and then if you start calling CQ POTA from a park, when the reverse beacon network picks you up, it automatically feeds your call sign into the POTA network so that you get spotted. So it puts your frequency and the time and all the park information if you've registered in advance. So it's a big advantage to a CW operator to register beforehand because you get an automatic spot through the reverse beacon network, which is a big help. The other thing that's good to do is to carry some stuff that makes you look official. Sometimes park rangers are your friend and sometimes they're not very friendly. And in fact, Mike and I were out at a wildlife preserve and the guy came up and he said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Well, we're operating a radio station." "Well, you can't do that here." And well, why not? He says, "Well, it's not on the list." And I said to him, "Well, does that mean we have to go?" "Yes." So that was it. We got our 10 contacts and we got out of there. So that was on a day. We did 5 parks activation that day. So that was the shortest park of the day. Anyway, it's helpful to take stuff along that makes you kind of look official. And oftentimes we run into rangers who are really curious and they say, "Oh, wow, that's neat. I'd really like to do that." And you have other ones like this other guy who's a big problem. So you just see the whole spectrum. The other thing is, speaking of park rangers, it's a good idea to kind of get a sense for what's allowed and what's not allowed. So I have family in Michigan, and it turns out in Michigan, in the state parks, they don't like you to put ropes in trees. So if you're going to go to a place like that, it's good to know. And so when I activated a park in Michigan, I just used my fiberglass mast and bungee corded it to a picnic table, and I kept everybody happy that way. But anyway, I wear a badge typically. And I carry my FCC license with me, and then I have a laminated sheet that says this is Parks on the Air, this is what it's all about, what we're trying to do, and all that sort of thing. So again, a little preparation in advance can grease the skids if you need it along the way. The other thing is that you get a lot of, if you're a geocacher, you heard the term muggles, you get a lot of muggles coming to see you as well. So a lot of people are curious. They see, "Oh, what are you guys doing? Who are you talking to?" And it's a nice way to talk about amateur radio. And again, if you can show them your badge and your park, it just really helps with the external relations, I guess you could say. And then there's some other things to think about, personal safety. So, you know, when you get into the woods is beautiful. It's a really lovely place, and we really love it, and so do the bugs. So it's a good idea just to kind of begin to think about a little personal safety. I always carry with me a can of insect repellent, and then sometimes there's no shade where you are, and it can be a bright sunny day. So it's a good idea to bring some sunscreen. So, you know, again, just little safety things. And then the other is that sometimes when you go out to these parks, you're really in the boondocks, and so you should bring water. And if you want to have a little something to eat, I typically throw in some granola bars and stuff like that. And, you know, I'll plan for the trip. If I know if I'm going to be going to a couple of parks and passing by a McDonald's or a 7-Eleven or who knows what, and I know I can get food and stuff, then I'll prepare that way. But oftentimes we just bring our own stuff and have a little snack. And of course, having good, fresh, clean water is really important when you're out on these activations. The other thing is to check the weather. The weather could be your friend or it could really be your enemy. So, you know, before we go out, we'll do an advanced weather forecast. And this is really important if you're thinking about doing an activation that's out in the boondocks and where you want to hike. You just want to be prepared. And then the last thing I'll show is that if you're going to do some hiking, you know, again, dress for the occasion, put on your boots, take your hiking sticks, dress, you know, pack the proper clothes and all that sort of thing, so that you're prepared for the weather and you can be safe whenever you're out there. So overall, it's just a lot of fun to do. One other thing that I want to mention about this is that doing POTA activations is really good if you're also interested in emergency communications, because I now know that if I needed to go and do an operation somewhere in an emergency condition, I got my battery box and I got my bag and I'm out the door. And when I get to where I need to go, I can set up a station that's capable of working the whole US, north and south into Canada, as far west as Alaska, and all the way into Europe. I could set it up and have it up and running in about 20 minutes. So it's really helped me develop my deployment skills so that I can set up a station, get it up and running very quickly, and I'm off and ready to go if needed. So this is my last slide, where to go to learn more. There's just a ton of information available on the web. The best place, you've heard me mention it a million times, is parksontheair.com. Treasure trove of information. They've got all the stuff on there, questions and answers, how to do it, all the award stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's really good. And there's also a bunch of YouTube channels that are pretty interesting. I put K8MRD radio stuff. He's pretty funny and has some really helpful videos. K4SWL at QRPeer.com. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He's just this really laid back guy who goes out and he does these activations, and there's a lot of little gems buried in his or throughout his YouTube videos. Another guy out in Wisconsin who makes antennas, KB9 VBR is kind of fun. And then the last one, if you're really interested in extreme outdoor stuff, you've got, he's an American guy who lives in Finland. His call sign is O Oscar Hotel 8 Sierra Tango November. And he does really serious off-grid stuff up in the tundra, way up north in Finland. And, you know, he takes his dog out and he sets up his tent and he builds a fire inside his tent, cooks his food. And, I mean, it's just pretty amazing what he does. But again, really interesting stuff about building batteries and operating seriously off-grid. So he's pretty entertaining to listen to. And then, of course, you know, just doing web searches on this stuff. So anyway, it's a blast. We love doing it. This is a picture of the two of us. And maybe that's another thing I'll mention as well. We really like going out together, and having a buddy, where's your buddy is really a good thing, because we help each other. And the activators, they love getting two contacts. So one of us will be calling CQ, and at the end of the exchange, he'll say, would you work a second operator? Oh, sure, we'll be glad to do that. And so then we do the exchange as well. And it just works out really, really nicely. We help each other put up the antennas, and you know, we kind of keep each other safe as well. You know, it's you avoid the one-man rule that way. And so anyway, it's fun doing it with more than one. So with that, maybe Mike, I'll ask if you want to add anything to what I've said.
Say, if anybody wants to come up and look at the equipment, feel free. I got
Sorry, yeah, if anybody wants to come up afterwards and take a closer look at all the equipment, I've laid out a lot of it there for you, and there's a lot more behind the equipment, little things you can do. So I'll just say that. So please come up afterwards.
All right, and sorry, questions, yeah?
How far in advance, the activation, how far in advance should you schedule it? Is it a day, is it?
Yeah, so I'll repeat the question. So the question is when we're planning on doing an activation, how far in advance do you do it? There's no specified time, really. The best time to do it is before you go. And sometimes, I mean, I've even done it where I say, oh, I got to spot, schedule myself. So I've sometimes done it like just before I put the keys in the ignition and driven away. But, other times, we do it 2 or 3 days in advance. And oftentimes we don't decide to do an activation. We'll just get to chatting with each other and say, well, the weather's looking good tomorrow. Let's go. And so that's what we do. So.
And there's no special approval short of knowing the rules of the particular park.
Right.
There's no other permission that you need to get from anybody as far as activating.
We've developed a philosophy of begging for forgiveness rather than to ask for permission. And I've actually found that, if we've seen a guy and, we kind of wave at him, he looks at us and then he comes over and he says, well, what are you guys up to? It's just better to act normally and, not call attention to yourself. And then if they come by, of course, we're very cordial and very friendly and work with them. But I think we've learned that we kind of let the sleeping dog lie. We don't poke the bear, whatever the right simile is. And we don't really have a lot of trouble. We've done a lot of activations now, and it's really rare. We only had trouble with that one guy, and he makes a nice story to tell. So he really was a classic. Yeah. So
thanks. And I'm a geocacher. I understand muggles.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So other questions?
Thanks.
Anything from the chat at all? No? Okay. All right. One more time. Any last questions? Yeah.
What's the one mistake that POTA wannabes are likely to make that you can help us avoid? If we've never done it before, what's the one thing that we shouldn't do that'll get in our way?
The thing that really is irritating is when you get out to the park and you don't have the power cord to connect your radio to the battery. Okay. So that is really irritating. So that's one thing I've done that I don't like very much.
Yeah. Same along those lines is it's worthwhile. And I've done this, and I think Leon has too. When you get all your gear assembled, set it up at home and plug it in and turn it on and operate, make a few QSOs, make sure it all works. Because we've both had that experience.
Yeah. So, and it's all about good preparation. Planning ahead is it makes sure you got all your gear with you. And again, that's another good reason to have a buddy. Is if you have a buddy, you say, "Oh, I forgot my power cord." You got one, and it's that really helps. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And one thing to add to what y'all were talking about having your equipment ready, is take a picture of it. That way, take a picture of it, print it off as big as you can. That way, when you're packing and when you're getting ready to leave the campground or wherever you're at, that you've got all your stuff.
Yeah, actually, and that's a really great point. So I would you've reminded me, another thing that I have done is I was on my trip to Michigan and I left my one of my homebrew winders. I must have dropped it off the table. And so when I got to the next park, I was digging around, where's my antenna? I lost it. So, you do, and that's a great suggestion, is to make sure, you look around and pick it up. So either not bringing something with you or leaving something behind in the park. I mean, I've done both of those things. So, all right, anything else? Just go do it. It's a lot of fun. So thank you for your attention this afternoon. Really appreciate it.